I don't quite know how to introduce her other than to say that there is almost nothing she cannot do. She is a brilliant singer, musician, dancer, writer, international superstar. Her shows have played from Edinburgh International Festival to the great cities of the USA, from Bergen to Bendigo. No, I just made that up because it sounds good. I don't think you've played Bendigo, have you? From the South Bank Centre in London to the Sydney Festival and Shakespeare's Globe, from Shanghai to Slovenia. I could just keep going, couldn't I? But we'd be here forever. And you really, honestly, if you read the amount of things that Meow Meow has done, I mean, it's kind of crazy. She's surely the only act to have worked with Pina Bausch, David Bowie, Mikhail Baryshnikov, not to mention Barry Humphries, who she collaborated on a Weimar songbook set with the ACO, and my favorite, the Von Trapp family singers. I'm presuming the children of the originals, but we'll get to that maybe in the interview. I guess Meow Meow is primarily known as a cabaret performer, but she also has what she calls an orchestral side. And that's been wonderful to explore with the MSO and the LPO and all these orchestras around the world. She performs Lieder by the likes of Schubert and Schumann, and she's a frequent traveler. I think a citizen of the world would be a good description, not calling really anywhere home, maybe Melbourne at a stretch. Has a weakness for antiques. When you see her, when you see her, you will be taken by her dramatic features and timeless visage. I won't be looking at her directly in the eyes at any time during this interview. It is my tremendous pleasure to welcome my dear friend and possible distant relative, the international sensation, Meow Meow. Welcome. Welcome. How did I do?
So well.
Oh, God.
So well.
I'm sorry I looked at you. I've done it once. I'll just keep
Oh,
going.
no. I've sucked out your soul.
Oh, no. Oh! Yeah, there she is. How did I do? I did it just how you told me to say it. Did I do?
Exactly. A few typos, but you fixed them. I mean, no one. We must work on articulation, obviously, but that's just a thing I have about the ABC. So we'll go on. Journalists now, articulate.
You're looking absolutely wonderful, Meow Meow. And firstly, thank you for doing this humble show, cottage industry, really, from my own cottage here in suburban Melbourne. But it's wonderful to see you, and I just feel like it's been ages. Like I haven't seen you in person for ages, too long.
It's a great pleasure, Ben. Listeners, I am a huge Ben fan, so and indeed of the MSO. So any chance, even if it is via rather shoddy technology, but we've done our best this morning.
We're back. We're sort of, it's triggering using Zoom, isn't it? I mean, it's kind of convenient and great that we can still do it, but were it not for the pandemic, we wouldn't be doing it, So it's
it's odd. I'm just trying to enlarge your face right now. I'm sort of, there's certain.
I can do that for you.
Sorry, I'm being idiotic, but it is. No, the last time we saw each other, we were doing the performance of a lifetime.
Yes, now that was something.
Fantastic series of concerts at the Bowl in December.
Yes.
When really you curated a beautiful evening of, the varied artists who were in Melbourne and the symphony. And it was magic, wasn't it? Everyone just really had a super emotional experience, I think.
That was something unforgettable that night. And I think for all of those people who were there, remember Brett Sutton was there for the second show. And I mean, I feel like there's been all these little slices of kind of beauty throughout this traumatic, very annoyingly brutal period on arts and artists. But we've had these amazing moments. One of them was that, and the other one was last year, and I wanted to start with this, the Pandemonium shows, Meow Meow's Pandemonium. I think it was Pandemic Pandemonium, wasn't it, last year?
Well, it actually was, yes.
That was right in one of the very few small gaps of the Melbourne lockdowns, which made it even more extraordinary. It was like June or something like that.
May.
What was that like? And just what was it like? Because I know you're very much I get the feeling you need to be on stage. It's must have been unbelievable not working the way you normally do, just traveling all the time.
Yes.
But what was that like, that release? Because I remember feeling it was pretty special for me. What was it like for you?
It was amazing. And I think but surreal, because we were in a little gap in lockdown in Melbourne, so we really had it was almost like I just had a bad dream called COVID, and I just went back to work and trotted down to the dressing rooms, and everything was there and lovely and sanitized. But
Yeah.
it was such a surreal thing because, in the days before, I thought, I don't know if my body will do it. Um, and then that sort of superhuman energy that you get. But really, I think just the full force of the MSO and the intricacy of the orchestrations, the arrangements. There's so much love in that particular show in Meow's Pandemonium that has, music by friends, songs I've written with Thomas Lauderdale from Pink Martini and the beautiful Ian Grandage, Meg Washington, Amanda Palmer. All the friends are around and
Yeah.
layered into the arrangements. And so it not only was, the beautiful players, but also feeling that all of these friendships from around the world were somehow ignited as well and channeled through the music.
When was the first time you worked with a big symphony orchestra? Because I know you've done loads of things, but I mean, when?
I think it was. I mean, I did. Ah, isn't that terrible? I can't think of the
No,
very
it
first
doesn't
time.
surprise me because you've done so many different kinds of projects.
I have done all sorts of, but I certainly playing with the London Philharmonic and doing the Threepenny Opera.
That's right. Yeah.
That wasn't the first time, but it was a time when I thought I might have a heart attack. I was so excited.
Wow.
That kind of thing. Because
Yeah.
again, just hearing it. But I think, gosh, I can't remember the first time. That's so weird. But in terms of my own full show with an orchestra, that was Oregon Symphony
Yeah.
and Thomas Lauderdale on piano. And I
Oh,
did,
that would have
in
been
fact,
fun.
invite the Von Trapps on stage.
That's just ridiculous. I read that and I was thinking, hang on, is that a different spelling or is that some
No,
kind of cover
it is
band?
the grandchildren of one of the real Von Trapps. And of course, Thomas and I have a love of, as many people do, of The Sound of Music.
Of
And
course.
I think they were doing the lighting of the Christmas tree it wasn't in Portland, it was somewhere else, and he met them, the four of them, Melanie, Amanda, and August, and Sophie. And they are the most heartful, exquisite. Well, they were young adults, really quite extraordinary. Grew up in America and were homeschooled for a lot of the time, so they're, in my opinion, that's done them the world of good because they haven't been completely broken by the sarcasm of television. But really, just beautiful musicians and beautiful people. And he'd said, I'd had some things, some dire things, and he said, I think you should just get on the plane and come over and have a quick visit because the Von Trapps are here. He'd invited them to Portland. And he said, when the Von Trapps are near, things can't be all bad.
That is really magical, isn't it? I mean,
and I went to meet them, and they were just so gorgeous. And I arrived, and they were seriously making schnitzel at Thomas
come on.
Loft. And I think because they grew up reading lots of P.G. Wodehouse and watching Jeeves and Wooster, and they've got like a very specific sense of humor, which I have as well. They really get my sense of humor,
right?
And but the surrealness of they were staying at a friend's place who was out of town, and they very much want to differentiate from when they were children, being the Sound of Music children, and trying to move away from that as young singer-songwriters, fantastic musicians and beautiful harmonies. And but they were staying in a place where there was a white staircase, and just like from the film, and then they said, take a walk out to the gazebo. And I was like, I'm really trying not to see you as the children from the film, but there's the Mount St. Helens in the background, there's a white staircase and a gazebo.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway,
might as well just be in Salzburg.
I'm raving about them. They were really gorgeous. So we had a sort of a dream sequence where I sat desolate on the stage. The entire Oregon Symphony left, and then we had the Oregon Youth Symphony all in the stalls. And so it was sort of a terrible dream sequence of devastation and loneliness. And then all these little mice, all these little tiny baby musicians came out onto the stage and swarmed up onto the stage.
Oh, goodness me.
And I'd sung A Song of Love is a Sad Song.
Oh,
And
don't
from
ask
the
me
audience,
how I know. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
from the audience came, Hi Lily, hi Lily, hi Lily.
Oh.
Who's that? A Song of Love is a Song of Woe. From the back of the stage again, back of the stalls, don't ask me how I know. And the four von Trapps came out. I said, who are you? And Melanie, I'm Melanie von Trapp. Melanie von Trapp, and who are you? I'm August von Trapp. And I was like, I've dreamed of this moment all my life. So I pulled out I had these tiny little baby dirndls made for them as per the music, the film. So they were made out of curtain material. And I had tiny little baby things that, of course, were miles too tiny for them now. So they hung them on the front, and we all did the Lonely Goat Herd song. And my friend Lance Horn, the pianist, was in the audience at the rehearsal. He said, "You look 6 years old. You look so happy."
Oh, my goodness.
So happy.
I totally understand where that's coming from, having grown up with the music of the Sound of Music. And I'm sure there's a picture of me dressed in lederhosen when I'm about 4.
Yeah.
And that's not a coincidence. That's definitely Mum seeing herself as Julie Andrews. And,
I think we all do at various times. But just actually, the joy of them was, of course, then they were these really beautiful musicians, and they recorded on, they worked with Thomas, did an album with Pink Martini, and they've recorded on mine. So they are real people, and they are really amazing people.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's something to get that call. The Von Trapps are here. You should come over. They're cooking schnitzel. It's like
it's like you can't believe when you walk in. I'm like, I know you want to get away from this image of yourselves, but you do realize you're making schnitzel.
Tell me a bit about that collaboration with Thomas Lauderdale and Pink Martini. How did you first meet Thomas?
That was again, I was talking about this earlier. I've always taken the path of saying yes, usually saying yes to the obscure thing, or jumping on the plane to the things that are a little bit exciting. And I was performing in Berlin, and I got a call from the Dublin Festival saying, we've just had a band fall out. Can you get here? Like literally get on a plane and just do something, because there's an audience, and a lot of them are presenters, and we don't have the band. So you won't be publicized. We'll get you a pianist, but we know you can just do it quickly. Can you get on the plane? So off I went, and a woman came backstage afterwards. I mean, there was not many people there. It was probably 30 people in the audience. And she said, "Oh, my name's Christy Edmonds, and I'm the director of a festival in Portland, Oregon, and I need to take you to the West Coast of America. The West Coast needs to experience you." And she said, there's a pianist composer there that I just have this feeling. I just have a feeling about the two of you. I need to get you two to meet. And so I flew to Portland, Oregon. She invited me to perform at her festival there, and introduced me to Thomas. And he's the most extraordinary man, brilliant friend, eclectic, extraordinary music, his knowledge of music and history, and his love of going deep into music is really.
And Pink Martini were well established at that time, right?
Absolutely. Already, gold and platinum all over Europe and all those things. But we just absolutely fell in art love from the very beginning and started writing songs together.
Wow.
And so I'd perform with them and, crossover in the world. And then we finally finished our album, Hotel Amour. Listeners, it's available on iTunes and Spotify. And that a lot of those songs are original. And there's also
there's lots of duets on that album too.
Well, we did.
Right?
Yeah, we did. Rufus Wainwright and I recorded À quoi ça sert l'amour, that fabulous duet.
Yep.
And we recorded that at Capitol Studios in LA. So that was just an experience.
Wow.
Like seeing Rufus sing, and just, he's an old friend that I also met through Thomas. How bizarre, at an opening night film party in New York, where we were just sort of both rather dorkily, nerdily standing there, and sort of started chatting. And I said, "Oh, I've just come from Portland." And he said, "Oh, I love Portland. My friend Thomas is there." And I said, "My friend Thomas?" And we were chatting for ages, and then someone came and said, "Oh, Rufus, do you want a da 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 da?" I went, "Rufus? Are you Rufus Wainwright?"
There's not many Rufuses out there, I guess.
Exactly. It was so lovely. And so when we performed with WA Symphony, just before the pandemic hit,
For the festival, yeah.
yeah, it was really wonderful because beautiful Ian Grandage got me to curate Rufus to come out for the festival, and he came and sang that duet before his own concerts. It was just beautiful. And Thomas came out to play, and
Wow.
Ian Grandage conducted. So we had a sort of Ian Grandage is the other composer that I've written a lot of music with.
Yeah, well, that was the next person I was going to ask you
Yeah.
about, because I feel like that's a similar kind of relationship in many ways.
Similar and different, and very different musically, but similar, fantastic friendship. And I feel so lucky because those two particularly are so well, it's given me, it's the collaboration that gives you the world, and also gives you support. It gives arms around when you're away from them. You've still got all this music you've made together, which is very precious. But having them all in one space was pretty exciting.
It was interesting hearing you talk about eclecticism before, which really is a hallmark of your career, and particularly your original shows.
Yep.
I mean, that's one of the things that I was really amazed by, in these concerts that I've been involved with you. Mix and match, so many different elements. And there's a couple, that we'll zoom in on in relation to, future concerts and things that you've become, I guess, better known for. But do you think that's something that's a product of where we are now in terms of our openness to new things, or the fact that maybe those invisible lines between genres are sort of fading away? Or, I mean,
no, I don't think so. Actually, I feel like it's always been something that has been very genuine to me. Like I follow the music that sparks
yes,
intense emotion, whether it be joy or solace or the need to dance or even difficult listening. Like it has to have some really very powerful, some potency for me to even contemplate engage performing it. But also there's things I think that are already perfectly done that don't need me to to carry them on. But the ones that stay with it, there's actually such a continuity that in the through line of being really permanently moved by them, but in different ways. So and I don't think that is something that we do allow a lot of, and that's what I hope through my shows, that you can put, Radiohead next to Brel, next to Itsy Bitsy Yellow Polka Dot Bikini. I mean, obviously I'm subverting that particular piece, but I think it's been interesting with the endorsement of performing these shows with orchestra. It's like it gives people permission to love them, love the songs. But it has been not a battle to get that, but I think people can't imagine it till they see it. And really, you're just looking for that common flame of sort of, the gasp of astonishment or beauty, aren't you?
Isn't that interesting, talking about the effect of music, regardless of whether it's in the category of what we horribly describe as kind of high and low art? People always talk about this duality, and there's so much common ground, actually, isn't it?
Well, and I think often that's to do with, I think of performers or, again, conductors' interpretation. That's also much part of the thing that keeps the life of a piece going, but also is so. I was talking about this the other day about seeing, did a festival with Richard Tognetti and Satu Vanska in Maribor in Slovenia, which is their festival. And watching Richard take Mahler's Fifth down, 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 even slower than I'd ever heard it. I'm going to cry. It's one of my favorite pieces of music anyway, but I just thought, wow, I never thought I could hear it stretched to that point, that it's something. And I've had times with you know, that's an exciting thing when you hear the piece just sort of, you know, even more come out of it. And I was saying about seeing him at the end of that Gallipoli concert that they did when he was playing the Like Ascending, and right at the end his hands were fluttering at the very end, and the follow spot beautifully just sort of zoomed in, so it was just on these dying fingers. And I've never been anti that piece, but it's never been something that has moved me so much as when I saw his fingers flittering at the end. And because the whole concert was so moving and interspersed with, you know, readings from Gallipoli, and you just got this extraordinary image of a, for me anyway, of a, you know, of a soldier's sort of dying tremors and a bird's wings. And that's when art is really, yeah, it's something else. And that's when you know, coming through the spirit of someone like playing like that, it's
Yeah,
gobsmacking.
that's the fascinating part, isn't it? That relationship between art and artist, and the fact that you end up becoming a filter
Yeah.
For the music you're singing or the drama that you're trying to convey. And that must be even more amplified, I think, in your case, because you're actually characterizing everything in a narrative that is a show, a theatrical show, and you've got that incredible ability to sort of make music connect with the audience. I mean, that's the amazing thing about your show, like the swings from comedy, you know, to incredibly heartfelt pathos, and those moments I find it's you know, the music is kind of irrelevant at that point. It becomes your story that you're communicating. Does that make any sense? That sort of
Yeah,
filter?
no, that's lovely. But I do think that, and I also think though when it's working, it seems to be that you are not channeling, because it sounds like, but you are just, yeah, you are the filter, or you are the vessel, or whatever. And I felt that so strongly with those pieces when you're, you know, it's crafted, it's a craft.
Yes.
You know, but then when it really takes hold and you're almost stunned by, I find that with Zurabai Johnny particularly.
Yeah.
I've sung that through my whole life by Kurt Weill and Brecht, and it changes, the narrative changes every time for me of what's happening. I'm always, it's always a new experience. And that, you know, we say that in acting terms, but when it is that, that's really rare.
Yeah.
That you're sort of shaken, that it's earth shattering, which Brecht would hate, because of course he'd like me to stay a little bit distant from it. But to feel that a song can keep this sort of perfect mixture of text and the strange windy ways of Kurt Weill that I love so much, the agony within all of that, and yet, you know, the epic journey of that song is so genuine to me, and shattering, but it doesn't feel, it never feels stuck, but you're still aware. One night I was like, oh, my contact lens is about to come out.
Oh.
And so you still, you know, that's why I love Chekhov, because it always has these, you know, deep and profound moments, and then something very banal like, I'm in agony, my lens is going to come out. You know, that's the way the brain functions, and that's when it's very special. And I think there's a couple of, you know, every song, I mean, listeners, Ben did a beautiful arrangement of Radiohead for me of Fake Plastic Trees, and, you know,
that's a lovely song. Well, this is all going to be coming out soon, that actual video of the MSO performance.
That video, yes. Sorry, I was just making sure you're all awake.
Well, it is 8:26 in post-pandemic Melbourne. I mean, God, are we awake?
No.
No, but that's going to be released soon, isn't it? I think
yes, it is.
this month.
At some point, we think in May. I think it's scheduled to arrive on MSO.LIVE. But it's sort of the you know, it's shot beautifully, it's filmed really beautifully, and we've selected, I mean, it is, I think they've done a really great job, because it's such a fleshy, visceral experience in that, to be in the house for that concert. So to get the vibe of that from the film is great.
Oh, it was amazing. It was even more amazing because of the time and the place, and
It
the fact
felt
that
like
the audience, they were off the leash, weren't
they
they?
were off the leash. We had,
Yeah.
Listeners might not know, but sometimes I do touch my audience, and in this case, I'm sort of like, I often say, you may not be moved, but you will be touched. And in this case, it was like, I don't know if they'll be touched. They will be moved. But we were allowed to do a modicum of freedom. I mean, we had special
Yeah.
sensation, didn't we? And
Yes,
it was pretty funny. But to have the whole show get locked down, 4 days later, the whole of the city to get locked down, it felt like a gift from the gods for me.
Yes.
Because I truly felt the music come back into my body.
Yeah.
I feel like it sort of saved me in many ways, because the players were so fantastic. The music is so profound. All of the pieces mean so much to me.
Well, the players loved the show as well, and there was so much for us to enjoy.
Well, I think it does a bit. I think I'm always trying to acknowledge just how, not just how brilliant the orchestra is, but how many people it takes to make something enormous like that work.
Yeah.
And so when I have the orchestra walk on, I want people to go, oh my God, this is huge.
Yeah.
All these skills, all of these different personalities all working together, with these, it's very lovely. So it feels like a celebration um, of orchestras as well.
Yeah. Well, you're going to be doing some more work with the MSO in October.
Yes.
And I believe your show at the Melbourne Recital Centre, which is called The 20s and All That Dissonance, I think they've sold that first show almost completely out, and they're announcing a second performance, Meow Meow, which is surprising.
Wait till we get to the 5th, then I'll get excited.
But that sounds interesting.
Melbourne.
I mean, it leads us onto a conversation about this extraordinary period of arts history, between the turn of the century, the 1920s. But tell us just a little bit briefly about that performance that you're going to be
well, we've called it, actually, after much toing and froing, we decided that we would call it, well, I decided actually that we would call it The 20s and All That Dissonance Volume 1.
Volume 1, yes, because there's heaps more.
I feel like there's heaps more, and
Yeah.
that just gives us the freedom to not pretend to do
everything.
catalog.
Yeah.
And also it's like, don't make me choose, because they're all, and it gives us the leeway, I think, to have Volume 2, Volume 3, and go on with the decades, and also allow more volumes within those. I'm pretty much making an oral contract here, listeners. So
I love this idea. No, right? I love this idea, and we're going to hold you to it, because I just think it's an extraordinary journey that you can take people on, and there's just stepping through that the magic of 20th century. I mean, it's the greatest. It's my favorite time as well.
Me too.
First
I
part
think
of
it's the first part, and it bleeds. It's a little bit into the 10s and a little bit into the 30s, but that period is so fascinating. And I thought,
it is.
Call it and All That Dissonance Volume 1. It gives us leeway to have a little smorgasbord rather than feel that we must tell the entire story.
Yes.
Because we can't, and culturally we can't cover everything. So I think it allows it to be a soupçon of lovely oral experiences from that period.
Why do you love this period so much? I mean, this is something that you've gravitated to time and time again. What attracts you to that material?
I think it's, I mean, I often joke about it, but I do think it's because so much is smashing up against each other. Nothing is ever clearly defined as in, and then this sort of music started or this art movement started. We're all borrowing from, not borrowing, but I mean, I just find that period so interesting because of what's happening in the arts, what's happening in terms of science and progression and technology and invention and visions for utopia. Excuse me, different governmental systems, no government, these are all seeded earlier on, but it is a fascinating confluence of, I think, also with travel, the fact that people could really cross-pollinate a lot more. that is kind of fascinating, and musically that's fascinating. So even though it had obviously existed before, there's just a lot more news and information crossing borders.
Yeah.
And, you know, add to that. So I think sonically you've got, such an interesting thing with jazz smashing, modernism smashing, um, commerce, and then liberation, and in all of that,
Yeah.
I guess the optimism of the Great War being the Great War, and then the dire reality of that.
Yeah.
So you've also got people in a really broken, uh, physically wounded and economically and psychically wounded state.
Mm.
So a lot of the art from that period I find too distressing, but it also feels like a period of honest attempts at expression.
Yeah. I
Uh,
mean, there's such an amazing energy in the music of that time, which I just can't believe sometimes when I'm listening to it. And I also find that the protest that's in some of that music too, the Second Viennese School trying to just rip the rule book apart, and you know,
thrilling.
even Cocteau and all of his crew trying to sort of reject populism, and then swinging wildly to something different. And it just felt like there was a lot of tension, in that energy. But also, let's not forget, it's post-pandemic. It's a pandemic era,
Yes.
and that's the terrifying question I'll ask you now. Are there? Do you think, knowing so much about that era, are there resonances with now that you can't ignore, or is it just completely of its own?
Oh, I think there. Oh, I don't know enough about that, but I do find it strange. I think I was saying to you, like the weirdness of the fact that the masks, the humble mask,
Mm.
is still the most potent protection, really.
Yes.
And
Yeah, it's
to me,
interesting.
I think for all of those things, to have the Spanish flu be that pandemic, and all that we've had experience now in technology and science and development, still the humble mask is one of the most, that sameness is very strange,
Mm. Yeah.
I think. And um, but I don't know. I think that period as well is, for me, I'm so interested in the dance, and because all of those artists were really, as they do now, really collaborating. That whole
Mm.
ballet russe
Yeah.
uh, sort of image of what was Russian, and anyway, and how constructed was that anyway?
Yeah.
Today, what are we representing of our, the Bush legend, or all of
Mm.
these things? We all have images of national identity or art identity. I
Mm.
do find that experience in that period really fascinating, of those artists, Balanchine, Russian, being seen, getting taken to America, and then there's sort of the birth of American ballet in many ways, even though this
Yeah.
exists, people coming over and learning, uh, how to count Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, and take,
Yes.
like, it's just so fascinating. All the, I guess, the cross pollination of the excitement and difficulty of art,
Yeah.
scandal of it, and to be really knocked over, I think, is so rare, and
Mm.
that's harder today. I think when we're orally so much more used to hearing, a plethora of ways of making music.
Yeah.
But don't you feel it often becomes very same, and weirdly gets blanded down? And so when you get reawakened to some noise or something extraordinary, I tell you what, I saw the Australian Ballet's Kunstkammer in
Oh,
Sydney.
yeah. Tell me about it. Everyone says it's fantastic.
It is so fantastic, and
Yeah.
I can't stop thinking about it, because I think the the Gesamtkunstwerk of it, the totality of it, is so thrilling.
Mm.
It's like looking at another world, and
Wow.
I think you must go, listeners. It's so wonderful, but to have that experience after feeling that the arts were so far down on the list, if on anyone's list at all, during
Mm.
worst. I mean, we're not through the pandemic. That's what's so bizarre. Is it too late to run for election?
I don't think so. There's a week to go. I think you just put a poster up.
Ladies and gentlemen, to make an announcement. Ladies and everyone, I should say.
Which
Dan,
seat?
all of them. I'm quite well proportioned.
Party. The Meow Meow Pandemonium party.
Exactly. I'll be Brecht.
MMP.
It'll be Dada for all.
I love this. I'm voting you in the first box.
It's good, isn't it? Dada for all. I like it. And a good yeah, I'm just thinking about the effect on the psyche for all of us had we been able to, I mean, you managed to do these things, but feeling that the arts weren't tapped into, weren't really looked after in the way that we discuss it as if the pandemic is over, and for the arts it's absolutely not.
No.
Many people it's not, but for, you know, this sort of conception of, oh, you'll just all be back on stage working, as if things just clock in and clock out. It's odd. And so strangely to see this piece, Kunstkammer, which is like just vibrating, it's thrilling. They are absolutely dancing another language. David Hallberg is appearing in quite a few of them, which is just an ecstatic vision. But the entirety of the piece, the music, it's Janis Joplin and Handel, and it's exquisite. But you really feel, I felt like it just broke my heart open again in terms of the necessity of art.
Yeah.
And I have, you know, I think often what we want to be great isn't great art, and that's part of our own problem, but it's not grabbing people and it's not transcending them. And I think so when you have something where you, whether you like it or not, you cannot deny that that is, you know, a company on fire with a language that is its own world, and it is thrilling to have something that's undeniably transcendent, rare.
Yeah. And I feel like
thinking about it because it's so rare.
Yeah, people have come out swinging, haven't they, after the reopening? I mean, people are going big with these ideas. The time for kind of shelving ideas is gone now. If you're going to do something, you might as well do what you've always wanted to do and make a real artistic statement of, as you say, the importance and the vibrancy of the arts and the necessity of the arts.
That's the necessity. I think that's what came across, because I thought, you know, ballet, much like orchestras, we've always got this endless tussle about high art, which is like, makes no sense to me as a thing. You know, I think we all need music. That is what we need.
Yeah.
But to see something that is, you know, to another planet. I mean, again, it's about the delivery.
Yes.
And I think, you know, a couple of times performing with San Francisco Symphony, actually, I've sat in the orchestra while they're playing because of the piece we were doing. And similarly with Barry Humphries touring with the Weimar repertoire with the ACO, we're sitting in the orchestra.
Yeah.
I wish we could get every child in to sit in there and see actually how active it is and how frenetic it is and how vibrant. And it's not a thing that's far away and separate. And, you know, actually it's this beehive of activity and concentration and magic. You know, seeing Satu Vanska's ankles, just, you know, sitting behind her and seeing her as she's playing and just seeing her beautiful ankles delicately crossed while all this, like, it's sort of like, it's an amazing thing. But I do think, you know, if we could get it, then you need that one little trigger. And if everyone can get that from a piece of music or something that breaks them open, that's what we're all doing it for, I think.
You know, it's an interesting time to be talking about music and politics. And before we get to some questions, and don't forget, if you've got some questions for Meow Meow, just pop them in the chat on the YouTube page.
Is there anyone out there?
We'll see. We'll see. I'm sure there are. I never can tell, to be honest. No. But I mean, I would have this.
To catch up.
I would have this conversation without an audience.
Exactly.
I just want you to know that. I don't need an audience to have this conversation. This is.
It's weird because I need an audience for pretty much everything. Can't get out of bed without one.
That was, I think, the horrifying thing, the realization, going back to work after the lockdowns and realizing, how amazing that feeling of performing was, and then realizing, oh, well, actually, yeah, I am sadly addicted to this. This is this is my entire life.
Superhuman. We had a moment at the end of the second show, listeners, when with the MSO, when I was, for reasons that are both comedic and tragic, holding up a big light beam, a big light. I was holding it up for
Oh, that's right.
It's very beautiful, but I was looking at my hand thinking, is this part of my body? I mean, I just felt so, it was familiar and yet unfamiliar, and, that sort of superhuman, I don't know, it was pretty amazing.
Oh, yeah. They were totally crazy. Hey, I was going to talk about music and politics, but I mean, really, is anyone interested? Maybe not. But what I am interested in is your original work, and in particular, the Little Match Girl, because I was fascinated by this. Was that the show before the Pandemonium? Was that the sort of the kind of?
No, it's quite a few years old. It was commissioned by Malthouse Theatre.
Oh, I see.
And I wrote it with, the music with Ian Grandage.
Yes.
And the lovely.
That's where Tear Down the Stars is from, isn't it?
A lot of the song, or Tear Down the Stairs, as the LPO misread it, which is always.
Stairs. Yeah. Not quite the same.
There's a lot about one's visions of grandeur, doesn't it?
That's very renovatory. I mean,
it's very practical.
Very practical. Very banal.
Tear Down the Stars, which is the songs from Match Girl are very precious to me, I think.
That was the impression I got. Yeah, that was a particularly special show.
It was really special. And I think Ian and we'd already written Vamp together and various other things, but we kind of hit our something magical was happening. And also in how to make a theatre work.
Yes.
Beautiful Marion Potts directing, and the Malthouse Theatre has been amazing in terms of commissioning work from me and really giving me amazing collaborators to make these pieces that are theatre, they're theatre pieces.
Yes.
But the songs have gone on from there. So that's what I mean. When I sing that, I've got in my mind all of the beauty of all the people who worked on that show, all the stories there. But it was commissioned as I've done 2 Hans Christian Andersen subversions, as they were, The Little Mermaid and Meow Meow's Match Girl.
Yeah.
And they're kind of precious because I think they're taking these tales, obviously, and finding it's like an inadvertent telling.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I'm looking at another one of them at the minute, and he's such a complicated figure, Hans Christian Andersen.
Well, that is a grim story for people who don't know the Little Match Girl. Like, that makes all of those other fairy tales look very happy. I mean, when you think of
they're all grim. They're not all, but I mean, the Little Mermaid, in order to have true love, she sacrifices her voice, and to get legs, splits a tail. So, there's wonderful psychoanalysis to be done on all these. But in a way, I realized looking at another one of these that I've been commissioned to make, I realized partly what I'm doing in those tales is trying to heal the violence within those original stories.
Yeah. I wondered about that.
And it's very clear to me now, I think, that, but it's a strange way to engage, especially what I'm looking at the minute, with a writer that you don't passionately love, but you somehow feel the need to protect or bring some kindness into it. And I think it's only
bring some resolution to. You're trying to resolve the story. That was the impression I got.
I'm happy to let it be shimmering, but I want it to shimmer, not punish.
Yes.
Good way to put it.
Yeah. And where did you perform that? What kind of venues? That was in theatres, was it?
Yes. So Malthouse Theatre, Sydney Festival.
Yeah.
Queen Elizabeth Hall at South Bank.
Yes.
Edinburgh International Festival, all in theatres.
Yes.
And Spiegel tents. That's the beauty.
Yep.
But and then the most sort of precious piece, I think, to me is really Apocalypse Meow, which is the last one that I did at Malthouse.
Yes. The Christmas special. I
and
love that idea.
Well, it's, it starts as a Christmas special and then it subverts that, I think. And again, it says really what I want to say to the world. So to me, that's very, very dear to me because it begins as if it were, a shambolic cabaret, and it becomes, I think, a much bigger dance theatre piece.
Yes.
I hope is quite profound, and it's, I've done that at the Globe in London. I've done it at
massive venues. Well, hey, there's questions coming in from people, and someone's asking, you've performed in so many venues. What are your favorites? And I think somebody,
is a loaded question.
Well, somebody else is mentioning they saw you at the Spiegel tent in London at the Wonderground.
Yeah.
And they're wondering what it's like performing in a tent compared to a concert hall, I suppose.
Well, what's funny is, obviously I fit very well in a. Those Spiegel tents are specifically gorgeous because they have got history. They're all wooden and mirrored.
Yeah.
I mean, there are new ones, but I love the really old ones from the 1910s and 1920s. They already have, the sweat of other performers in the boards. And I like that. There's one in Berlin that I've done that's Bayede Vernunft, which is like the home of German cabaret. And I've done quite a few seasons there, month-long seasons. And that has a real, it's not just circusy. It's got history to it. And I like that. But I really love it. I love a concert hall with an orchestra.
Yeah, well, you deserve.
Like it's actually my natural.
You deserve an orchestra at the very least. I would have thought, or at least one.
Next time, a stadium. I have performed at. I was going to say performing at the Globe. Interestingly, playing Titania there.
Yeah, you did that. That would have been amazing.
It was amazing, and that is like the wooden floors, the wooden pillars. There is a similarity to, a circus tent. There is a ramshackle out.
Wow.
It has spiritual significance, the way that the stage is divided. If you go into the theory of, Elizabethan dramaturgy and how the energies are and where one is in the stage. But there is also something incredibly immediate. You can see the audience.
Yeah.
They're all standing there. You're addressing directly. You're not soliloquizing off into dreamland. It's not formal. Every reference is to the house.
Yeah.
And the Globe. And that was quite revelatory, I think, performing there and thinking, this is why I love Shakespeare so much, because that feels like directly current. And it's written to speak to these people in this wooden, so it felt like the most natural thing in the world for a performer who improvises a lot and speaks directly to the audience.
What other venues that sort of stick in your mind?
Royal Albert Hall.
Yeah, that must have been a hoot.
I mean, really, I think that is just so enormous, and there is such a feeling of. I played Miss Adelaide there in Guys and Dolls, the Royal Philharmonic, and she's a brilliant role. She's hilarious, poignant. The director was fantastic. Everyone in the show was fantastic. There was not one grumpy, truculent. Yeah. Everyone was just absolutely on fire. And it's such a, it's a tight, brilliant script and a gorgeous score. And it was sort of, it was the thing where I thought, I'm going to fall off the stage. I'm going to forget my lines. I'm going to get sick. And I was so, I didn't. It just felt magical because the character was so beautiful.
Yeah.
And Jason Manford was my Nathan, wonderful British actor and comedian, just gorgeous to be with. So that I had a co-star who was also used to improvising. So even though we were on script, there's a freedom and a comfort with an audience with that kind of actor.
Yeah.
That is very present. But that was stunning.
Hollywood Bowl. Loads of
Hollywood Bowl was also.
Hollywood Bowl! What a storied venue that is. That must have been something.
That was with Pink Martini, and there was a point when I was sitting in rehearsal with the LA Phil at Hollywood Bowl, thinking, because their music is so joyful.
Yes.
So, again, so textured and detailed orchestrally.
Were the Von Trapps waving in the audience to you as well? Cooking
there, like it was a smorgasbord. We had Ari Shapiro, who guests with them from NPR, All Things Considered, who's a guest with them. All of us were there. Thomas had gathered, I think, 15 ex-Miss Americas, including like the most elderly. Like, he's a lover of history, with a singing "I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar," coming to sing with China, and a civil rights activist, amazing, who in her 80s, who sang "Love for Sale," who was one of his great mentors when he has worked in council, because he is a political being in the best sense. He's cares about the community and action, and I would say equity.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was this sort of extraordinary. It was an extraordinary night, but we did 2 concerts there. But that's a surreal venue to play.
I bet. Meow, we're fast running out of time, and I think
many venues. I forget Sydney Opera House. Oh my God!
My Zoom subscription only allows for 1 hour. No, I'm kidding. But somebody else has asked a question. Are there any performers who have influenced your performance style? That's not something we touched on earlier, but are there some that jump out as kind of particularly influential on your maybe your performance style, maybe your creative style might be a better framing of that?
I think the work of Pina Bausch. Still,
and you worked with Pina Bausch, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
How that must have been amazing.
Amazing.
When did that happen? How did that come about?
These things often happen, again, by accident. I had a concert in Bonn that was cancelled, and I went to stay with a friend in Wuppertal, and they said, "I'll come out and have a drink." And then I got a call sort of some months later, and they said, "Oh, she'd love to curate you for her festival. Can you send us a really, really quickly?" Like, just sort of, I didn't meet her that time, but through something where Joanne Endicott rang and just said, "I just have a feeling about you and Pina. Can you send me?"
And she basically sort of invented modern dance. So, or is that overstated?
I mean, that's always
dance theatre,
but it's from. Right. But in terms of, I mean, it continues a tradition in many ways. But her work for me is incredibly profound because of its ability to go in and out of great beauty and great grotesquerie.
Yes.
And sadness. And it doesn't have to label everything. It allows those things to exist at once. In terms vocally, I think Nina Simone was a big revelation for me about not necessarily having beauty, but intention and
strength. Yeah.
Strength and the story, and
yes.
pain much more. I love all the, I love all the icons, and I love an exquisite, I used to love Kiri singing Schubert, these are beautiful things. But I love the breathy French vocals of Françoise Hardy from the 1960s. It's a smash up, I would say, of like Piazzolla tangos were incredibly influential just for, it's often about the story. What am I saying?
Yes. It's the vehicle to tell a bigger story. Yeah.
But I do feel that the dance and the ballet sort of oddly influences so much because it's so visual and yet so coming from the soul. I remember seeing a performance of Eugene Onegin where I got a little bit of sweat in my face, and I could hear the dancer making noise as she was thrown off the pas de deux, and I thought, that makes sense to me. Not to hide the visceral, and pretend that it's all, but to, So it's been more moments like that, I think, that have been influential than a style, I would say.
Yeah. So
See everything. I would say see everything.
yes.
And and so when you have that sort of transformative, you see something that you cannot deny. That they're the rare ones, and they've shaped me more, I think, than a particular. Like, I don't want to do a Piaf rendition or a Take Off of Dietrich or a Lottie Lenya. I mean, I love her voice aging. I love them all, but I don't want to be that. I don't have. I have a weird voice, and so I try to work to
weird, fabulous.
Well, it does. But it's not a conventional voice. I think that's why Nina was interesting to me, and just the extraordinary emotion.
Yeah.
And musicality within something that's sort of unexpected. Right? That's what I love.
Someone else has written, you've said you live in terror of being self-indulgent. What does that mean?
It means I live in terror of being self-indulgent. Oh, I wouldn't say terror I mean, I've obviously said that, but I think you don't want to be feeling it so much that you've disconnected from the audience. And
so it's that relationship with the audience, and that's tactile for you, isn't it? Like, that is real proper connection, physical connection, audience involvement, breaking the fourth wall down, bulldozing it, as Scott Morrison would say.
And ideally, I mean, Stephen Berkoff once, he'd said to me, you need to bring them to you. You don't have to go to them. And that's great advice as well. So I wanted to do both.
Yes.
But you don't want to be having your own agony on stage for people to witness in order to make you feel better. That's what I mean about self-indulgence.
Yeah. Yes.
I need this for me. No, it needs to be what are we doing together? And that's why I go back to a lot of those very simple songs, Patty Griffin's All the Girls, as a finale, often, that it is so simple and it's just like, let's be careful with each other.
Be careful.
And so I think there's the fear of self-indulgence is that really means disconnect. You don't want to be, you want to be in the ride together.
Yeah. And maybe a final question, Meow, is, do you think there is potential in music to heal people?
Yes.
Yeah.
Has that come from a listener?
That's come from a listener. Yeah.
I think it is perhaps our, gosh, it's why I've found a lot of the things hard in the, music sliding off and the importance of music. I do think that is the gift I've been given, was being able to respond to music, and that is clearly what we need to make healing in the world.
Yeah.
I try not to get teary, but that's a whole next. That is the point of it. I think.
Yep. I mean, we got there. We worked it out.
Music of the Spheres is the thing that when you're just transported.
That's what it's all about. What a great way to finish up this interview. I'm so happy that we finished on that note, because that to me sums you up. You're such an incredibly generous performer, and I do love that idea that you're caring for the people you're performing for.
I hope so. I mean, there is, there is that thing about cats purring, that there's a theory that they're healing their little minor fractures through the vibrations.
Yes. Yeah.
And so
right.
I'm thinking about really even just, on a technical level, if we're vibrating, tenderly, are we mending our fractures? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe we are. Well, that's what music is, isn't it? Vibrations going through the air from one person to the next. So I'm sure there's a lot of truth in that. I'm almost sorry to finish up the interview, but well, I have to give your show a plug in October again, because you will be with the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra at the Melbourne Recital Centre, and pianist Aura Go, and a second show has just been announced on Saturday, or the first show is on Saturday the 8th. I guess the second show will be on the Friday or something like that, or on the Thursday, I think it might be. The 20s and All That Dissonance, Volume 1 of 25. Let's just throw it out there.
Yay!
Now
send
it's published.
Requests, by the way, we're still formalizing the program, so send requests.
That's all right. You can send the invoices and people can send requests. But I can't wait to see that. I can't wait to have more ongoing
I can't wait to play together again, Ben.
I know, it'll be beautiful. It'll be beautiful. And I know everyone at the MSO absolutely adores you. And I'm sure that's true of you wherever you go. Wherever you go. So thank you for giving me your time tonight. And I can't wait to see you on stage again. All the best for whatever's coming next. And thank you to Tarawara. Thank you to all of you for listening and watching. Thank you for your questions. I'll be back with Genevieve Lacey, recorder virtuoso, for the last videoed performance of Up Late with Ben Northey before we switch to the darkened world of podcasts where you can listen to this show while you're doing the dishes and cleaning the house and driving your car and all of those kinds of things. So it'll be a very different world then too. But in the meantime, can't wait to see you at a concert very soon. I'm Ben Northey. Go well.